This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
A wonderful, warm winter eco-training camp. It's going to be a wonderful afternoon. I can't wait for you to join us on your live safari. Dude, that's nicer. Oh, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. BK and I are having quite the sighting here. I'm actually going to swing you around to the other side because it's even more exciting. But first, I'll introduce myself. My name is Lauren. I have BK on camera. And here we've got some Koiki francolins walking incredibly slowly. I'm not sure why. We don't often see these francolins. Normally, we see the crested francolins. Look at them. It's very, very lovely sighting to start today's sunset safari. Now, it's very hot here in Djuma, I must say, and I am thoroughly enjoying the temperatures, which is 29 degrees Celsius and 85 degrees Fahrenheit. Look. Now, when we show you francolins and you hear them, it's normally the crested, making quite a racket. But here, we have the Koiki, just about to pass in front of our car. Now, I'm not sure if you've been told already, but please do talk to us. You must talk to us. Use that hashtag Wild Earth on Twitter, and you can use @FC on the YouTube chat or on Twitch. I'm going to wait for them to pop out the other side. I don't know what they're doing. You can see they look very different from the other francolins, from the crested. Oh, here we go, here we go. I'm just going to move my body to the side and you'll see they're going to pop out in front of the car. They're just there, BK. You see that one going up the mound? And the Koiki francolin's the only one with a mustard yellow head. You see that head is really yellow. And straight away you know it's not the crested francolin. And this one's a male. So that mustard head means male, and the females look slightly different. Ah, that's a female behind. You've got a male in front and then a female. How exciting. So I'm going to bumble to my usual spot, the hyena den, and let's hope the Djuma clan is present.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to And Beyond Ngala. My name is Eric, and behind camera, as always, is Owen. We are in the mighty Timbavati River, and the reason why we've come down here so early on is just around the corner is a very, very small little area where there's still water. And we got a call from one of the other rangers that is out and about this afternoon, and he said that there's quite a large herd of elephants that was there. So we're hoping that we're still going to catch them, and if we do, it might be watching them drinking and digging for sand, or drinking in the sand for water, and playing around with one another. So all we need to do is just round the bend, and then from there it's quite a nice long stretch where we'll be able to see the elephants from a distance if they're still around. If they're not there, then we'll head up towards the largest waterhole in this area to see if maybe they've gone off for a nice afternoon swim. It's one of those days where it's a beautiful winter's day. It's about 30 degrees here at Ngala, which means that it's nice and hot. And if these elephants are wanting to cool off, that nice big waterhole is one of the best places to do so. So see here, this is what I'm talking about on the right hand side. All of these big depressions are the tracks of the elephants. And the really cool thing is if we look at the direction in which they're going. So you've got the big track here, and then it starts off quite round and it gets quite pointy in this direction. So this is probably that same herd of elephants walking from that side, crossing the riverbank, heading in that direction, straight towards a dried up pan. If there's no water in that pan, they might drop down into the river. So with that in mind, I think it's worth us driving nice and quickly there. So Patipan is actually winter, believe it or not. I mean, there's not a cloud in the sky. It's a beautiful day, but it is quite cold in the mornings and the evenings. And so it is winter at the moment, but we are coming into the springtime, which is such a beautiful time to travel into Africa because everything is starting to turn green. It is quite a beautiful time, especially in this area.
It is a beautiful time, and we are a little bit north of where Eric is. Well, quite a long way north actually, about 250 to 300 kilometers. Probably, maybe even more, maybe 400 kilometers. My name is James Hendry. Hello. I hope you're all very well on this Sunday afternoon. We have got the magnificent Theo. There he is on camera, and we're looking at some nyalas. Lovely herd of nyalas, my favourite antelope in this area. I think they are the most beautiful. And that is a nyala ewe. And what's interesting is that the reason I paused there is that the males are known as bulls and the females are known as ewes. And that's unusual because normally it's bull and cow and ram and ewe. But because nyala are the point at which the change occurs, size-wise, the females are less than 100 kilograms, and so they're known as ewes, and the males, or the bulls, are more than 100 kilograms, and so they are known as bulls. Make sense? Not really, it's just a quirk of English. There's absolutely no biological reason for it whatsoever. Gorgeous herd, and they're probably going to go off towards the water, I imagine, and have themselves a nice drink. So, I don't think we're going to follow them to the water. I think we'll probably move on from here. Our plan is to head off towards the eastern end of the reserve, maybe to where we had Tlalamba hunting today. We'll go and check around Buffelshoek Waterhole, which is the waterhole northeast of here. That cat moves a long way, and we had her far from where we found her this morning, and she just did a Tlalamba on us. She just disappeared. And she did it so fast that Aubrey and I both thought maybe this cat is a little bit skittish, because I didn't actually have a good enough view to be able to identify her. I did guess that it was her, so I'm going to give myself that much credit. Anyway, so that's our plan this afternoon. It's probably around 25 degrees Celsius or so. There's still a strong wind blowing, and there's a big fire raging in the southern parts of the Manyeleti, and so I think we're probably going to be in for a very pleasant sunset, because the sky is going to be full of cloud on the western horizon. Now, it is fire season, and at the beginning of winter, I said that we were in for quite a severe fire season, I thought, this year. And that's simply because we've got such long grass after such excellent rains during the wet season last, so sort of early this year. It'll be interesting to see what happens, and we're now getting into the beginning of fire season. Between now and the first rains is when the real danger is going to, well, threaten us, I suppose. But fear not, for those of you who are from places like Australia or Western United States, the fires that we get here are nothing like the raging forest fires that devastate those parts of the world. It's just grass fires. They can be pretty severe, but nothing like those big tree fires that you guys have in those parts of the world. Look, there's a nyala approaching us. So our nyalas are not, in fact, heading off to the water. They seem to be very contentedly just standing in the shade, perhaps waiting for things to cool down, nibbling on the odd leaf. And here's one that is very curious about what on earth we want. Now, nyalas are interesting because what they do is that they become habituated to human beings much more than kudu or impala. And they live around the camps because there's a lot of water around the camps, and so the vegetation's greener. And you can sometimes walk past them within 2 or 3 feet, so a meter or so. And they're very comfortable around people on foot. So I think we're probably now going to head off towards the east.
We haven't got to the elephants yet, and the reason why we've stopped is these animals in picture can be as entertaining as the elephants. So we've got a really nice big troop of baboons, and it seems like we found a couple of the youngsters that are putting on a show for us. And so a few of them are in and amongst the grass, but the majority of the troop is actually on the ground, which is quite interesting. And a lot of them are spending some time foraging through the grass, and they're trying to pick off fruit that comes from the tree above them. And that fruit is, or that tree is called a jackalberry. So at this time of year, they drop these green-looking fruit that are about the same size as an olive, I guess, is the best way I could describe them. And there's quite a few members of the troop that are in the tree, although we can't really see them because that canopy is just so dense. And so as they're foraging, they're dropping a lot of leaves, they're dropping fruit, and all of that is edible to not only the baboons, but also to the impalas. And so I think that's why these impalas are so close to this troop of baboons. Ooh. I've just heard the deep grumble of an elephant. I think they might just be around the corner. So Maya, I don't know, listen. Just around the corner, the elephants are going crazy. So there was lots of trumpeting and chasing something around. We're going to investigate what that was, but we'll watch these baboons for a little bit longer. And Maya, baboons, I don't think have a favorite fruit. At this time of year, though, in the winter time, these jackalberries are probably one of the only trees that reliably fruit. So at this time of year, these baboons will eat a lot of these jackalberries. But when it comes our rainy season and springtime, a lot of different fruit will come. So we've got marula fruits, which are very popular amongst baboons. We've got kai apples, red ivories, brown ivories. There's lots and lots of different fruit out there. Or sour plums. And so it seems like this troop of baboons has found a really, really good spot here. And like I said, we heard the commotion of those elephants who seem to be just around the corner. So we're going to go and investigate to see what they might be shouting at.
Well, we have still got these herd of buffalo, and they are slowly moving in the direction of Leopard Dam. So hopefully we'll catch them there a little bit later in the drive, going down to drink on this very, very hot winter's afternoon. It's a gorgeous winter's afternoon. It's not too windy. In fact, there's a nice cool breeze just keeping us alive. Basically, it's parched here. Very parched, and you can see the buffaloes look parched too, walking through this dry and dusty veldt. They were lying down on the top of this ridge with a nice breeze, and now moving down to the valley where undoubtedly there'll be less of a breeze, but generally more green vegetation and a little bit of water. See some of the young bulls looking back at us there with their big bosses. Hey, old chap. He's going to be a big fellow one day. See their dark coats and lots of oxpeckers in attendance, just flitting around from buffalo to buffalo. You can see there must be a lot of flies around them because their tails are swishing constantly. Buffaloes are actually one of my favorite of the big five. They're so underrated, you know, everyone always just thinks they're so dopey or whatever. But I just think they're incredible. Tough animals, really tough. Especially these old bulls. The herd's so protective of each other, often chasing off larger predators when in danger, which is something unusual. Most antelope and most herbivores don't really protect each other. They'll generally look after themselves. If they sense attack, they'll run and escape. There they go, disappearing into the veldt. Quiet for such a large herd. There must be about 40 animals in that herd, I think. And so, yeah, it's very quiet considering how many massive animals, you know, those big buffalo bulls, you know, weighing hundreds of kilograms, over 1,000 pounds. You can see they just disappear down that hillside there. Wind is still blowing gently here at Pridelands. It's actually a nice afternoon. I don't even know if I managed to introduce myself in the last segment, but yeah, had some issues. Hi, I'm Mike. Behind the camera we've got Gert, and you are here at Pridelands Conservancy, and I'm sure you can hear the wind in my mic. It's a little bit gusty. It's nice and hot as well. You can see us sitting out in the sun here. So, what we're going to try and do in a moment is follow these buffaloes onto a different road and see just where they head. We know there was a whole pride of lions, about 6 lions this morning, not close to these buffaloes, but you never know, with the wind blowing towards them, they might just come and try them a bit later.
You never know out here in nature what might happen. Now, we've come across 3. Is there 3 there, BK? Yes, 3 giraffes. Browsing all in one tree here. So this is not a journey, this is a tower of giraffes because they're not moving. And not only are they tallest mammal out here, they're also the heaviest ruminant in the world. But I often wonder, how does a giraffe defy gravity? I mean, that's a substantial height. I'm only 5'2", so I don't really know much about height, but that's a very sort of tricky body shape. The brain's very high up from not only the heart, but the legs. And basically, giraffes have a very special joint, and it's called the atlas axis joint, and it's at the base of the skull. And what it does is allow them to tilt their head up and back down again, and up and back down again to reach the delicious vegetation. And they don't get dizzy, they don't get a head rush, and they're defying gravity. Not only that, they have lots of special ligaments holding their shoulder blades and their, you see that hump? Yes, this hump, there's a huge ligament there that's holding the neck up in place. And that's how a giraffe is able to stand nice and tall. Their neck has a really large range of motion. They can swing in all directions, their neck. And they're still able to stay upright, retain their balance. I would topple over, I think. I still haven't found that injured giraffe yet, but I am looking out for him. So I'm going to continue my journey down south and see what else we're going to find on today's drive. So when I was talking about that ligament, it's called the nuchal ligament. And what it does is basically, I'll just show you, it comes from the giraffe shoulder blades all across the back up the neck and down. That's how large this ligament is, and this pure muscle is holding the giraffe's neck up. But surely it's going to flop over. So what happens is there's another equally large muscle that holds up the chest. So on either side of the giraffe's neck, it's completely built in with muscle, and that's what helps keep the giraffe upright. Yes, we can see you. Because it just amazes me that they're able to just stand tall, gallop. They can gallop up to anywhere up to 60 kilometers per hour. When they really want to, giraffes can move fast. And they rarely trip. They rarely fall. They only really have two gaits. You either find a giraffe sort of ambling walk or galloping. You won't really find a giraffe doing any gymnastics or acrobatics in the air. So I'm going to sit here for a little while and admire these beauties.
Welcome to a very hot and warm Pinner Private Game Reserve. I'm DEWALD, and behind the camera we've got Craig. And we've got these white rhinos here. We can just see their ears sticking out there. Welcome to a very hot and warm and beyond Pinner Private Game Reserve. Behind the camera we've got Craig, and my name is DEWALD. And as I don't know if we can even see these rhinos, but like just can see their ears sticking out at the top there. And they are probably trying to hang around these bushes and these guarri trees and so on that's here to try and get into a bit of shade or so. You can just see the little bit of ears sticking out, but there's quite a few individuals, like 4 or 5 around this area. I wonder if there's maybe some mud wallows that they are looking to wallow in, maybe in between the bushes here. Just have a look. There's actually quite a few buffaloes in this area as well. I can just see the backs of 2 quite far in the distance, so I think a lot of the animals are hanging around these bushes here, because it's also helping to get them out of the wind that's been blowing throughout the whole day. Must be a little bit easier for them and a bit cooler for them to be in between these guarri trees. Mulmul, you are asking at what age a baby rhino will leave its mother. It's about 1.5 to 2 years old or so, closer, and then it'll probably still hang around mom but not be too reliant on her, and then try and find different individuals that's about the same age, quite often of the same sex, but sometimes it's males and females that mix, and they'll form little groups together. And so you could say about 2 to 3 years old, around there, and then the female will probably look to mate again and find another mate and go into estrus. You can just see the ears sticking out, and that even tells us that these are some white rhinos. Just by looking at those ears and them being quite pointy, shows us that it's white rhinos and not black. The black rhinos will have a nice rounded ear, almost like Mickey Mouse ears. But for now, I think Craig and I are going to keep on going and see if we can track down some cheetah this afternoon.
Now, we're sitting with a very average sighting of a little grebe, but I'm here at the main Djuma Dam with this little grebe at the request of Dr. Mukund Tata. I have no doubt I have totally butchered the pronunciation of your name, and I'm sorry about that. But you very kindly got hold of me and said, please, would I go and have a look and see what's going on with the grebes here. this is the only grebe left in this dam, and it's a juvenile, so it could have been the one that survived to our little family of grebes that we watched hatching out of 2 eggs. Became, well, it was 3 eggs actually. One of the eggs never hatched, 2 of them did. Then one of the babies seemed to get lost along the way, and the other, I suspect, is this one, but the parents are not here anymore either. So they've moved on. But there you go. Mukund, I hope I said that correctly. I've no doubt I didn't, and I'm sorry. And our grebe is hunting for interesting things to eat as the wind blows in from the northeast. And if you look carefully, let's just pan upwards towards the lodge there, and we can see that fire. Pan, I meant tilt, sorry about that, Theo. There we go. So nothing to, it looks pretty intimidating, but it's not about to threaten us. Let's go back to our little grebe for one last look, and then we'll press on. I think that's a log. Sarah, I think that grebes are related to loons. They're not closely related to ducks. But I think that they are in the same family as the loons. I will check that out. We don't get loons in this part of the world. Let me just quickly check for you. Grebe. I need to look up grebe. Okay, we won't do that now. We'll check that up later.
Again, we haven't had to move too far, and we found these elephants. And I am pretty sure that these are the same elephants that I got told about that were drinking in the river. Because if you look at that one, look at its back. There's that very distinctive, almost white color. So that is sand from the river that she's flicked onto her back. And so when she was digging for water, that sand would have been nice and wet, and because of that it would have been very cool. So to splash it up on her back would just help try and cool her overall body temperature down. And if you look closely directly behind her, you'll have to look almost through her trunk. You might just see another one flapping away there. So there's 2 elephants at least, well there's actually quite a few more, but it seems like the majority of the herd might be on the top of the bank. And so we're only seeing a couple of individuals. And this seems to be the herd that we heard a little bit earlier on. And the ones that were causing a raucous were somewhere a little bit further away from us. So we actually didn't see what was going on. But I would imagine it would be a couple of bulls that were playing around with one another, and one just got fed up and maybe started shouting. So there are actually 1 or 2 more elephants that are still drinking up ahead. We will show you quickly. So there that one is. So you'll see it will go deep down into the sand, and that one's also got white on its back, and there it is drinking. It's amazing how these animals can find water just by knowing where to look in a riverbed like this, in a seemingly dry riverbed, and they're able to sniff out the water and find the right place to drink. There's a little bird fluttering around there too that looks like a lilac-breasted roller. And so we might go and have a quick look to see if we can see them drinking. So I think let's maybe try and have a close look. This could be one of the last ones that we see from this herd. So I think having a quick little look to see how they do it, we might see how he sucks up some wet sand and squirts it away. So it will be quite interesting to see. There could even be some more just tucked away behind these reeds that we haven't quite seen yet. It is only just the one by the looks of it. So this could be a young bull who got pushed away from the nice big water holes a little bit earlier on. And so now he's trying to quench his thirst. Because he's slightly younger, we don't want to disturb him too much. So parking at this distance with a nice long zoom, we'll still get some pretty good shots of him. And see how far that trunk is going down, those tusks. Oh, we might have got the last little drink. Those tusks were only about 20 centimeters off of the ground. And look at that trunk, very wet. You can actually see it glistening in the sun. And he's just testing the wind. He doesn't look too nervous that he's by himself. And he's just moseying on, following the scent trail of the rest of the herd. I'm sure by now you'll actually hear them. You could even see a couple of the individuals from behind. But look how tall these reeds are. I mean, it makes a juvenile elephant like that pretty much disappear. And let's see, he might walk up the bank. So he's also going to join the rest of the group that we won't be able to see in a second. But just taking it nice and easy for the afternoon. And if you also look very closely now, just behind his ear, there's a couple of splotches and some wet sand. And so that for an elephant is probably the most effective way of cooling themselves down. With that nice wet sand, they get right behind the ear, and behind those ears are a whole series of intricate veins and capillaries that the elephant's heart pumps the blood out to. And so basically just makes the elephant really nice and cool to get that water on the skin. And all of a sudden it's gone. See the rest of them, but quite difficult to say. So it actually will be quite cool to move forward again. I won't get out of the vehicle, but if we get lucky, we might get quite a nice vantage point of the actual hole that these elephants have been drinking from. We'll have to wait for that one. I've actually just seen it again, and the reason why I saw it was that flap of the ears. Otherwise, if it stays still like that, it's so hard. I'm just going to keep quiet for a little second as we come out of an ad break. So just enjoy this elephant. Alright, so this elephant is still in the same spot. But he hasn't, I mean, it's so difficult to see. So I think I am actually going to move forward. We'll have a quick look to see if he's close by. I won't get out of the vehicle with the elephant so close by here today. But I'm hoping that we might be able to see the hole. There's a couple of spots down in the river where these elephants have been digging repeatedly this season. And it literally looks like a warthog burrow. They're about this wide, and they go down for about 1.5 meters. So they are digging seriously deep to try and get the last bit of the water this season. Let's see. there are actually, so I'll quickly show you one or two little holes before we continue on with the afternoon.
I thought we had found our injured male, but it's not. We are in Twin Dams area, and this is a male, but sadly it's not the one I'm looking for, I'm afraid. I'll keep my eyes peeled for him though. This one's blocking our path, so we can't really go anywhere. Also browsing. And I mentioned this the other day, but giraffes do browse on acacias. And when, or their leaves of course, and when the acacia tree actually notices that there's been an injury to the tree, it emits a distress signal, and this is in the form of ethylene gas. Now what's fascinating about giraffes is that they are aware of this. They know that when they eat the acacias, there will be a signal released. They can probably smell the gas and understand that it's some sort of distress signal. And giraffes have evolved with acacias. And that's why they purposely always choose to browse into the wind. It's amazing when you watch them, so that this ethylene gas, which is a warning gas, doesn't actually reach the trees ahead of them that they plan to go. Isn't that fascinating? So if there's no wind, you'll normally find a giraffe will walk about 100 yards to the next tree. And this is further than the gas itself can travel. So they know that they're avoiding it. They don't want to go to the trees that have been pre-warned, if you like. So it's almost as if the giraffe can understand the signals between the trees, because once that tree gets a distress signal, most likely it'll start pumping tannins into the leaves, which is very unpalatable for the giraffe, and it can build up and cause a herbivore to be extremely ill. This happens in kudus. But because of the size of a giraffe, I'm not entirely sure what effect it would have on them. But a giraffe is very aware, and looking at trying to be camouflaged behind this tree. I think it thinks we can't see it. But we can. I would quite like to get a little bit closer. Some giraffes are very relaxed. Let's turn on the engine and see what happens. It's a big dominant bull, and they're all here because the knobthorns are flowering. Knobthorn above us, and they love those flowers. VK was going to show you there. No, he's walking away, but look at that. Enlightened. Oh, I'm sorry, boy. You don't need to worry. Enlightened something. You are asking, why is the area so lush at the moment? Why is there so much green? That's a great question, and it's because the summer was absolutely incredible. There was so much water in summer, and actually, to be perfectly honest, I'm going to roll ahead and give you a view of Twin Dams, and you'll see how much water is still here. That it was almost too much water. That we really risked flooding in the summer. The rains were the heaviest it's been. The dams were as full as they have been in 7 years. And this is Twin Dams, one of our main dams in the area that's normally completely dry by now. Normally there's not a single drop of water to drink. And look at it, it's full. So I'm going to get round our male giraffe and keep heading south.
We have come to this dam that I said we were going to come to, at the northeastern corner of Djuma, and here we have found a hippopotamus. And this hippo has got a friend. I think it's a youngster. It looks very drowsy indeed. Sleepy hippo. I am scanning the shoreline to see if anything else interesting is here, such as a leopard perhaps, or a pack of wild dogs, a pride of hitherto untracked lions. Maybe a lizard of some description, crocodile, snail, terrapin. There are 2 other hippos there. It's a very peaceful afternoon. It's funny, I think those grebes, because there was a family here as well, I think those grebes become nomadic once they've finished their breeding. So that's why I don't think we're seeing the adults. I think they probably move around and go wherever they think there'll be some food. Andrew, hippos don't get sunburned, strictly speaking, no. They potentially get sunburned, but they produce apparently a substance that saves them from becoming sunburnt. A pink, smelly substance that they exude that's supposed to protect them from sunburn. I imagine those pink bits behind the ears and that sort of thing probably would get sunburnt if they exposed them for too long to the sun. And of course, as we know from our own experience swimming, or a lot of us do, the water's not really much protection from the sun. You can get sunburned in the water, certainly if you're close to the surface. Beastly wind. Not so much for me because it's quite warm, but I imagine it's making a nasty noise in the microphone. Christy, I think when we talk about marine mammals, we're talking about the marine environment. So it would be a sea or ocean, and this is not a marine environment; it's an aquatic environment. So I suppose I would describe them as an aquatic mammal. Yeah, but they're not very closely related to cetaceans or marine mammals. Most marine mammals belong to that group. I don't see anything else obvious going on in this part of the world. So I think we'll knock along towards the north and then come down past where we had Tlalamba this morning. So we'll do sort of like a big loop around this waterhole.
So we left those elephants and we are now in one of the smaller little tributaries of the Timavati River. So we're still driving in the riverbed. And the reason being is that we are looking for a female leopard who the trackers were trying to track this morning. And they think that the tracks were very fresh, they just couldn't find her. So we're just going to do a quick little loop around this area before we continue on. It's a nice area to be in if you're a leopard because there's lots and lots of shade. The wind is funneling down this drainage line, so on a hot day like today, if she's not up in the trees trying to catch a cool breeze, lying down on the sand would be a really good option for her. So that's why we're driving here. It's one of those animals, I'm sure you're all aware how it is one of the most difficult little ones to see. I think it's never mind. Sorry, it's a log. Just one of those things that when you start looking for an animal, you just start to see it all over the place. Any rock, any branch, any stump all starts to look like the leopard. So I wanted to show you what, oh, here we go. Here's a cool little thing. Something that I was talking about probably about a month ago is how purple the dung of a porcupine is looking. And it's this one isn't particularly purple because I think it's quite old. But it might, I mean, if you look at it, there's a slightly little purple tinge to it. So this is a porcupine dung. If I break it open, I see it's very, very fibrous. It almost looks like that's like cotton wool. Let's see what else we can find. There'll be things like little pieces of bark. There'll be small little twigs and little bulbs and stuff and other things that we can find. That's gross. Now I need to try and wash my hands. So that's, I mean, I guess in a way would be a similar color to the leopard's dung. I wouldn't really be fiddling around with the leopard's dung as much as the porcupines, but the leopards would be quite a lot bigger, so probably about 3 or 4 times as big as that. And then we're just coming out of an ad break shortly. Alright. So welcome back to all of the viewers. We're still driving this riverbed and looking for any sign of leopards. And I was just describing the differences between a couple of the dungs that we look for in this area. And for this particular leopard, what we'll be looking for, if it was dung, it would be like this beautiful black color. I can't believe I've just described dung as beautiful, but it will have this very glossy sheen on it, and you'll see that it's nice and fresh. So that porcupine dung that I just stopped at was probably from a day or 2 ago. So Ian, not really. I mean, they don't usually use the tracks, although it is quite nice and compact. So sometimes they will, but you find that animals won't tend to walk along the river very often. They tend to cross it more. And I think it's just quite a lot harder to walk in the soft sand than it is to just cross it at a point. So this is quite a nice example here, where you've got a game trail that comes down, and this happens all the way along this river. So you'll see it almost like funnels into a section. Even though it is quite rocky, you can still see how the animals use one pathway. Sure. And I've just turned around, I've heard some rustling in the grass, and there's a kudu behind us.
Oh no. We just lost sight of our pigeon. We've got an African green pigeon for you. It has been perched so perfectly in this really strong winds here at Chitwa Dam. Hold on, we'll get it for you. Well done, PK. There you go. Gorgeous birds. Yes, they are a pigeon, but they're stunning. And they're diet is almost entirely fruit, especially figs. They love figs. They love the jackberries. And sometimes they may take seeds, but really their diet is predominantly fruit. Such lovely birds with that gorgeous green colour, hence the name African green pigeon. It's definitely a better choice than the brown-headed parrot. I approve this name. But they are very common around here, but nothing like the Cape turtle dove or the emerald spotted dove or the laughing dove, because they do tend to sort of move in response to food. So naturally winter will be a bit tougher for the African green pigeon than summer will be. Summer will be plentiful. But believe it or not, they're said to be monogamous. Monogamy is very common in the bigger birds, the raptors, the birds of prey. Not so much in smaller birds. But African green pigeons are said to be monogamous, and both male and female contribute to making the nest, and the eggs are incubated by both. So it's a high level of parental care from both the male and the female. It wasn't so long ago that BK and I saw the fish eagle swoop down and kill one of the African green pigeons. So by staying in the tree, among the branches, among the leaves, it's also a safety net from bigger birds of prey that will of course swoop down and hunt them. This tree is absolutely throbbing with them. There's so many, they're just not so easy to see. But we are at Chitwa Dam, so I think we should give you a view of the beautiful dam. It's very quiet, it's windy, and I was hoping that because it's so hot today, we might have seen some animals drinking, but sadly not. We do have the, oh no, the hippo's gone under. There definitely is a hippo there somewhere. Just beside that dead tree, BK, it should pop up any moment. Or possibly not, but we are going to sit here and hope that our hippos make an appearance.
So we've got an update, and we came across these two white rhinos, and they were actually lying flat on the ground when we arrived, and just the sound of our vehicle made them just stand up for a moment. You can see how they are still listening towards us. It seems like they actually have, they're a little bit skittish because of the wind blowing, so I'm going to try and keep my voice relatively low. There's a watering hole not far from here, and you can see that they are actually caked in mud. This one on the left hand side is almost two-toned. It's a little bit difficult to see with the shaded part on his body there, but they've got quite a bit of mud on them, probably to cool them down during this hot afternoon that we've had. So weird that they went and wallowed in the mud and then just came and lied down right in the middle of the sun. Would have thought that they would maybe try and get some to an area where it's a little bit cooler, maybe a bit of shade. I think, however, this breeze that's blowing is maybe keeping them cool enough. There's actually quite a few birds that have all of a sudden just appeared and are sitting in the background there, and it looks like it might be some Cape glossy starlings that just all of a sudden arrived as soon as they saw these rhinos get up, hoping for these rhinos to flush out some insects or so for them. It looks like it might actually be two young bulls just by looking quickly. Jessica, you are asking if they get
protein, you're asking if they get protein from the plant. I do think that they do definitely get some kind of protein from it. Possibly not the same as what we get from our food, and they've got specialized enzymes that will break down some of the parts of the plant and change it into usable protein for them. So these two are now actually settling down a little bit. You can actually see that seems like they are putting their heads almost on the ground and just resting, still listening to us. But I think they are going to be just here for the afternoon. Cool. Was I supposed to... So we've just found these two white rhinos here, and one actually, we were sitting here for quite a while and we were waiting for them to settle down, and the one has actually gone and lied down completely, and you can see the one on the left hand side is also starting to lie down now. Welcome to And Beyond Pinda. Behind the camera we've got Craig and I'm DEWALD, and we are actually looking for some cheetah this afternoon, so these rhinos are a pleasant surprise. Just as we get back onto them now, it seems like one of them has just gone and lied down again, and it seems like these are two youngish bulls, not dominant bulls, just by looking at the size of them. Although the one is a little bit bigger, and that's probably why they are hanging around together. They are enjoying this afternoon sun, which is pretty weird, because it is very, very hot here today. See, there's always one ear listening to us. Seems like the one on the left hand side is a little bit more wary of our voices, as he keeps on turning both his ears towards us. But both of them are settling down. I think it was such a windy day, it must have been quite stressful for them, with all the wind taking away from their senses, and now they actually have a bit of time to settle down while it's nice and hot. Sinak, you're asking if they feed on succulent or thorny plants. So these two in particular are white rhinos, so they feed exclusively on grass. They'll be feeding on all the grass that's around them. It doesn't really matter what type of grass there is. The ones that will be feeding on twigs and branches and leaves and so on, those are black rhinos, and they'll be feeding on anything like that. So there is some succulent plants that they do feed on in certain parts of southern Africa, especially towards the desert areas and so on. But black rhinos, actually they feed on a variety of vegetation, especially the thorny trees in this area as well. And they have very specialized lips to be able to grab those branches and pull it into their mouths, while these white rhinos that we are looking at now, their mouths are completely flat, so purely for feeding on grass and trying to grab the grass with those lips. Seems like these two have been feeding the whole morning, and now they've got a afternoon siesta going on. can see the neck muscle of the one on the right hand side there is nice and big, and it looks like a little bit bigger than the one on the left hand side there. But I think for now we are gonna try and keep on going, see if we can look for some other animals and leave these rhinos to sleep.
Londeka, Londeka.
Sorry about that. We are gonna be sticking around with these rhinos for now while we have you. We'll keep on going a little bit later on, and they are exactly the same spot where they were earlier, and you can see they've got quite a bit of mud on them. We actually went to the watering hole just around the corner a bit earlier to check if there was some other rhinos that have wallowed in the area, but we didn't see any. I wonder if these two are maybe lying down and waiting for this breeze to maybe stop or so, and then they'll maybe start feeding a little bit later on when it's a bit cooler. I wonder if that mud is keeping them nice and cool with this wind that's blowing at the moment. You can see their ears are constantly turning around, so while the one ear listens in that direction, the other one listens towards us. We were talking earlier about the age of rhinos and when they leave their mothers and so on, and I'm pretty sure by looking at the size of these two, they probably bonded to each other after leaving their mothers quite a while ago, and they'll probably stick around together for quite a while until they become dominant. But I think we are going to keep on going for now and see if we can maybe look for some cheetah.
We've got this beautiful scene of not only one giraffe drinking, but there's 3 others that are coming to drink next to it. So there are the other 3 you might be able to see. That one on the right hand side was drinking when we got here, and it hasn't stopped. But it will be interesting, so watch the 3 on the left and look how long it will take them to drink. And see they're scanning around, they're checking to the left of us to see if there's any potential threats. They might turn to the right again. And so, being so tall, having the heads very low like that just makes them off balance and makes them quite vulnerable, and as a result they're quite nervous when they're drinking, so they need to make sure that they're in the clear before they decide to drink. And I wonder if that big one drinking might just ease their minds a little bit. See, that one on the left, I don't actually think there's water there. So it might be picking up something like a bone. It could even be licking the dirt. Interesting, it might actually be drinking, but I can't see that the water goes into that little bay there. Yeah, it is drinking. See how it flicked with its head like that? That's usually just to get the blood that's building up from the top of the heads, get it to rush right back down their neck so they don't feel slightly more comfortable. That big male on the right is spending lots of time drinking. This is about his 4th or 5th drink that he's had. And he's spending a long time down with his head like that. Verma, I don't think so. I mean, I don't think they get pain in the necks. They might. I think with that giraffe that we saw drinking first, that big male, when he's fighting over dominance, he uses his neck as a weapon, and so he swings it back and forth and he uses it quite aggressively, and that might give him some sort of whiplashy feel, but I don't think they suffer too much from neck pains. And so only one of the three that have arrived has been brave enough to drink. The other two are still mustering up the courage. And just look from here, the size difference now that they're all standing up. The one on the right hand side being the big male. In his prime, you can't get bigger than that for a giraffe. And he practically dwarfs the females on the left. Now they're going to be drinking together. You see, a bit uneasy. So let's see, you get two different techniques. You get ones that stretch their legs as wide as they possibly can, and then that male was actually bending his legs. More like a push-up in a way. See, something, even like that bird that flies, if it comes and lands too close to the giraffe and spooks it, they might get a fright and they might decide even not to drink. See, that one in the middle of the three is also, yeah, it must be drinking. Ooh, that one on the right got a fright. I think that might have even been an oxpecker landing. Sassy Cassie, the tallest giraffe I've ever seen, was probably a male that was over 5 meters, between 5 and 6 meters. I mean, I think most male giraffe tend to be pretty much the same height. But there were two that looked ginormous because I think they were just so close to the vehicle. You had to crane your neck to look up at them. And he was relaxed enough that he came and he walked straight past the vehicle, and then we almost felt like we could drive the vehicle in between his legs. He was so tall. But I mean, I would imagine that big male on the left is roughly the same size as that. So there must be a little bit of water there, because that one that got spooked decided to go to that smaller stream and drink closer to the other three. And now watch this male. He puts his head down and he's just testing the female. So he wants to know if any of them might be ready to mate. No, shake of the head. No, she's not ready. Moving on to the next one. He doesn't seem too interested in any of them. You'll often see the phlegm and grimace when that happens. So he'll lift up his top lip, he'll take a big deep breath. See, these females have spent a fraction of the time around the water than the male did. And again, just such a beautiful size comparison. That male is huge. Sassy Cassie, this is the biggest giraffe I've ever seen, I think. So it's not going to be too much longer until that one finishes its drink, and then I think they all might move out into the bushes away from this waterhole.
You are joining us at another waterhole where a young elephant bull has decided to dust bathe at the banks of this waterhole. This elephant bull you might recognize is the one with the back right leg that is very short. You can see that his leg actually hangs off the ground as he stands up straight. It's amazing, those images of the dust, the wind blowing it over his ears. That's awesome. So this young elephant bull, I think it was born like this. I think it was born with its leg short, or it happened when it was very young. And it seems to be dealing with it quite well. It's not suffering any ill effects from that short leg. It's growing into a fine young bull. In the company of Kumo and the rest of the elephant bulls. There's about 13 of them that hang out in one big group. It's good to see him also venturing out on his own once in a while, being a bit independent. There's not much that's going to faze him, even with the one short leg. I think this elephant bull doesn't have to worry about anything. It can take its time. No elephant, no lions or anything like that. No predators going to hurt it at that size. Gosh, this is really amazing. Just watch it as it takes the dust and throws it on its core. It's really nice. I'm not sure who asked the question. I'll get the name in a moment. But the question is, what does the dust help the skin? Does it make the skin less vulnerable to being sunburnt? And the answer is, probably yes, it does help a little bit against the sunburn. But I think it's mostly because the sand might be cool. That's sand that's in the shade there. And it helps to cool it off, and also maybe for rubbing against trees and bushes. It helps for exfoliating, getting rid of ticks and parasites and all those kind of things. So really, really useful. And there's the other elephant bull that was hanging out with him earlier in our camp, the feisty one. So these two are often together. And that other one on the left, there's a slightly smaller bull, I think, but a little bit more feisty. It's more inclined to shake its head at the vehicles as they drive past and all that kind of stuff. It's a young bull, showing off their strength and their size and trying to prove themselves worthy of, the mantle of the top elephant in this area. Of course, it'll take a long time before either of these two elephants become big enough to take on EXELBY, the mighty EXELBY, or Kumo, the other large elephant bull here, or Gap. There's another elephant bull called Gap, also with a collar. That's how I know its name. I say its name. It's a name given by the research teams. Christy, yes, I'm 100% certain that they can smell water from a long distance away. Because you'll often see them, when a wind picks up, they'll be walking a certain way, and I've seen them literally lift their trunk up and smell, and then turn their whole herd in the direction of the water. So I definitely know that they've got a great sense of smell, and water has a very distinct smell. Even we can smell the water on a good day when it's blowing in a certain direction. You can smell that moist earth, the watery smell. So yes, definitely, Christy, they can use their trunk to smell the water from a distance. I love watching these elephant bulls at the waterhole, especially these two, because they spend so much time with us at the camp. I've become quite attached to them. Very glad to have them here.
Hello everybody. Here we have got a silhouette of some battaliers. I was going to do a quiz with you, but I think that you would have known almost immediately what they were, and they're silhouetted, of course, because of the fact that the light is behind them. And it's the same couple that we see relatively frequently. They just happen to be in a different part of their territory. This is where they hang around, in the southeast corner of Djuma. They don't hang about too much else unless they're flying. They don't hang about too much else. They don't hang about in too many other areas unless they happen to be flying. And these guys are just chilling on one of the trees in their territory. So they are pretty territorial. And they've got 2 or 3 nesting sites just a little bit off to the west and south of where we are now. They don't look like they're particularly interested in anything, so I don't think that they're here because there's some kind of death that they're looking to scavenge upon. You can see the wind still very strong. It's probably actually picking up a bit. Quite a nice picture there of the leafless marula tree and the two bateliers. One of them flown off. When? I didn't even see it go. We've done a long traverse of the eastern boundary. I see Lauren is just in front of us, obviously with the same idea. We'll probably fossick around here in the east for a little while longer, and then maybe go back towards the west. I would imagine that surely on a day like today, elephants must be coming down for a drink or a swim. So we'll keep going past the waterholes that we know of. Alrighty, on we go.
Well, we don't have to go very far at all to find elephants because they're always here at our dam. So this elephant bull, name is Ivar. It's what we've sort of called him because his one leg just wobbles around like it's got no bones, like that Viking Ivar, the boneless. But look how he's walking. Oh, I thought he was going to go and mud wallow. Maybe he is going to mud wallow. There was a big muddy patch there. It's now sort of separated off from the rest of the waterhole. It's going to dry up in no time at all. And then they'll have to go deeper into the water, which isn't maybe necessarily very pleasant because of the cold temperatures of the wind. But anyway, we must do what we have to do, needs must. Look what he's doing, sniffing the ground. I wonder if there was another elephant there at some point, or some animal that urinated there, and this elephant is just smelling it. So much information is conveyed through the scent. I wonder what he's smelling. I wonder what information he's getting. Look at that leg. Look how you can really see how much shorter it is than the rest of its other three legs. You see how it just hangs there? So interesting. I'd love to know what happened to this elephant. Didn't like the taste of that water, obviously. Elephants are quite fussy. Does not want to drink there. Sometimes its throat is just getting a bit dry, maybe. Just sucking some mud up its nose to get rid of the dust. They both seem to be slowly heading off now into the distance. I wonder where they'll go next. If they keep going that way, they'll head up towards the HQ, our farmhouse, another water hole on the property. Tailor-made, is it possible for elephants to have too much water? You know, I don't think it is possible for an elephant to have too much water. I think they're quite intelligent animals. I don't think they would ever drink too much and then, make themselves sick. I mean, they could probably drink water that wasn't good for them if they were extremely thirsty, which might make them sick. But I don't think they would drink, if the water was fresh and okay to drink, I don't think they would drink so much to make themselves unwell. That would be quite unusual. Tailor-made, I don't think that they can drink too much water. I wonder, I've seen elephants often walking across rivers and underwater, and I'm sure the sometimes get water up their nose or they breathe it in a little bit and have to cough and splutter. That's obviously not great for them, but not too much water. It's interesting watching these two elephants walk off. I wonder if the elephant will wait and slow down for the limpy elephant. Will they, is there a camaraderie there? I always wonder what thought goes through their head. Because, they're so big and they can communicate over huge distances. Is it necessary for it to wait? Maybe, just for the companion elephants. I don't think over 20. Still young, still got a lot of growing to do. Constantly stopping and smelling and listening. Ronell, I am certain that short leg is definitely causing a whole lot of problems for that elephant. I'm sure that it's gotten used to it, but it's probably quite uncomfortable. It's probably not great for its joints. It's probably going to have major problems. I don't think this elephant will attain the great age and size of the very biggest elephants, just because eventually that hip is going to give out. There's no way. There's no way that it's not going to. There's a lot of pressure and force there. Remember, an elephant can weigh many tons, and those ball joints have got a layer of cartilage, which is very important, and often a little bit of a layer of fluid there, which helps the joints to move smoothly. And when that gets damaged, they just break down and wear down, and that's what causes arthritis and all sorts of things. So this elephant is almost certainly never going to reach the same size as others. It will probably not live as long as them, purely because of the pain of that hip. Might cause all sorts of secondary problems. It's a real shame, and obviously elephants are, so emotive and, so intelligent, but it's a natural thing that happens out here in the bush. Some animals are born in odd circumstances. They usually don't survive very long, but this one obviously has, if it was born with that, and we just have to let nature take its course for the most part. Try not to get involved as much as possible. Sometimes it's impossible. Sometimes we step in, but mostly let him live his life. You see, he's with other elephants, so he finds a way. Where there's a way. Ruth, in areas where there aren't a lot of other game, let's say this was in Botswana. I can't remember exactly where in Botswana this happens. I'm racking my brain for the area where they do this a lot. Maybe it's the cylinder spillway or somewhere, I'm not sure. But anyway, lions there, big prides of lions, tend to target elephants that are smaller or weaker in some way when there's nothing else around to hunt. And so if this is walking through that area, certainly it would be a major target for lions. But where it is now, this part of the national park, the Greater Kruger National Park, there's plenty of game. There's impala, there's wildebeest, zebra and kudus, plenty of them, much easier for lions to catch, much less dangerous. Even that buffalo herd we saw earlier would be much less of a threat than this big elephant bull that could easily kill a lion with one swipe of its trunk or one push of its giant head. So the lions would be hard-pressed to even consider trying to attack this elephant. But strange things happen in the bush. I mean, if those emails, seventh that was not by us but someone else on the reserve, and 2 male lions, I mean, that's a lot of power. That's a lot of claws and teeth. You never know. I've seen hyenas successfully harass a rhino that was almost fully grown, and actually kill it. So even a rhino is an incredibly powerful animal, which could also easily injure or kill a hyena, but they managed to eventually, however unlikely. This the other day, and I definitely think it will, because I don't think so. An elephant, in order to mate, had to rise up onto its back leg, female, way he'll be able to reach. So without having both carry his whole weight, I think that this elephant will ever be able to. However, elephants mate in water. That will help weight. So maybe if he's clever enough to somehow insert the female in water, that's one way he could potentially mate. Remains to be seen. He's too young yet to be mating.
Well, Djuma, we're back on Djuma now, and it's eerily quiet. We are going to head slowly to the hyena den. That's been about an hour and a half, roughly, since the start of drive. I think we've got a nice magpie shrike up here. Can you see it peaks? 9 o'clock. I think that's what it is. Let me get my binoculars out. It looks initially drongo-ish, but that long tail is not the feature of a drongo. I wonder what we have here. BK will get us nice and close so we can see the detail. Oh, it is a magpie shrike. Look at the white. There we go. A gorgeous bird. Not quite the same as the European magpie, but still they're stunning. Named after that black and white coloration. And it's funny, you've all been learning about the elephant with the that was limping. And there's a really fascinating paper that was released not so long ago. And it was about why we have no animal species in the entire animal kingdom with 3 legs. Why don't we see animals with 3 legs? It possibly could benefit them. Imagine you had a bird that had a 3rd leg that it could just lean on when it's perched on the trees. Is that a slender mongoose or is it a dwarfie? Oh, it's a dwarfie. It's ran away. I almost got excited there. It's gone away, Beaks. So yes, it's a really, really interesting read. Why do we not find that? And the theory is forbidden phenotype, and what that means is an animal, or a plant actually, you could apply this to plants as well, although it's not really the same when you're talking about legs. It's a phenotype that does not and cannot exist. And there's lots of animals in the animal kingdom that actually use a tripod stance. Even if you think about meerkats, like the meerkats in Tswalu, they have an upright stance and they're actually resting and leaning on their tail. They're using their tail almost as if it's a 3rd leg. Even woodpeckers, with their retrices, their tail feathers, they use that to balance on when they're sort of hanging on a tree trunk in order to peck away at the wood. And a tripod stance, like the examples I've just mentioned, don't require any energy to be stable. I mean, a meerkat resting on its tail is not requiring any additional energy. And if you stand up on 2 feet, like this bird is doing, that's taking a lot of energy, this magpie shrike. You might not think so, but it's balancing. It's a very windy day today. And although the bird doesn't weigh very much, it's having to hold on and probably use lots of muscles. And by utilizing the muscles, you're using energy. So actually, standing on your 2 legs is more energetically expensive than you would think. Sugar bits? I don't think so. I've never heard of strong winds damaging a bird's feather. The feathers, I went into great detail about them this morning. There's different types of feathers. You have insulation feathers, you have structural feathers, you have flight feathers, and they're attached to the body. And of course, when it's windy, a bird will know exactly how to adapt its flight corresponding to the wind. You've also got different modes of flight. You've got battaliers who, well, they fly very, very low, almost touching the ground. And then you have vultures who, oh, this is a drongo, fork-tailed drongo, one of my favourites. And then you have vultures that use a low energy type of flight by riding the thermals. So when it's a windy day, the actual species themselves will most likely adapt to the strong winds. And just come back to that 3-legged conversation because it was really fascinating. Oh, okie dokie. I shall continue my 3-legged chat later.
Wild Earth relies on support from viewers like you to carry on broadcasting our daily live shows. A small donation goes a long way in helping us on our mission to connect the world with nature. Please visit our support page to see how you can help and become part of the Wild Earth family.
Now, we've found this giraffe that has got a missing eye. I think the eye is in fact just gone. And I know now the oxpeckers are making a heinous racket while I'm trying to speak. Thank you. Now, I know many of you have seen this giraffe before. I have not seen it before. And I'm sure you've all debated long and hard about how it is that that eye was lost. And looking at its head, this is obviously a giraffe that's fought a lot. But I don't see any fresh wounds on that head. And I am of the opinion that you're looking at the good eye, by the way. I am of the opinion that this is a freak accident where it spiked its eye on a stick or a thorn or a sharp branch, and it's pulled it out, spiked it and then quickly pulled away, and that's resulted in this rather disastrous injury. I say that because it looks very similar to a human eye that I once witnessed subjected to exactly the same treatment. I think I've told many of you the story before, but he was doing some bush clearing and he just bent over straight onto a stick, which went into his eye, and then he jerked backwards, obviously reflexively, and destroyed his eye entirely. Maybe that was a fight. It just looks like, it would have to be an incredibly sharp something that would have got in there, unless he hit his eye flush onto, say, the bump of another giraffe's ossicone or something like that. And if he'd hit it flush and hard enough, I guess it would have ruptured the eye. There's certainly enough swelling for that to be the case. But there's no broken skin around the eye, I don't think. I think it's all just from within the eye. Horrid, poor fellow. I'm sure he's in a lot of pain. But I also think he'll recover. Anna-Marie, now the other one's leaking as well, you see that? And I suspect that's in sympathy. Shame. Anna-Marie, their tongues, I think, are probably slightly less vascular than others, but probably not that much less vascular than some of the other animals that eat thorns. Oh. Now, there is a bit of a wound above the eye. No, you know what? I think the eye's still there. That's a pretty good look at it now. There's definitely a wound there. That eye's swollen shut. Yep. There's still an eyelid. Yeah, it's swollen shut. Gosh, shame. Now, many of you may be experiencing what's known as an isomorphic sensory motor response, which basically means some kind of sympathy, a physiological sympathy response. So you'll be looking at that, you'll see the eyes watering, and your own eyes will start to water a little bit. Your nose might even start to run slightly. And that's because you subconsciously imagining what it would feel like to be subjected to an injury like that. And he's quite a dark giraffe. And as we know, the dark giraffes we think are wanderers and risk takers and probably more likely to fight. Suzanne, you say you'd like to help it. Yeah, I would too. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen. It's going to have to do without your help, Suzanne, or mine, or anyone else's for that matter. Be interesting to watch him over the next little while. Let's hope he hangs around. Gosh, it must be sore. I'm definitely feeling that in my eyes now. Looking at that thing's eye makes my eye sore and makes my tear duct start to work. So you may have to go and get yourselves a tissue.
Oh, sounds like that giraffe has been in the wars. Our zebra that we have are very obliging this afternoon. And we've got two stallions who are right next to us, and they're just feeding and grazing in this beautiful shade for the afternoon. And the lighting is just so perfect. We're getting to see this one here on the left. And because he's been so close, we've been watching him quite carefully, and he's got a very interesting spot pattern, stripe pattern on the left, or on his rear. And if you look about halfway down his leg, you've got that distinctive shadow stripe. But there's one stripe that starts off as a shadow stripe, and then it just becomes thicker and thicker and darker, and it looks exactly like a normal stripe. Whereas usually there's just a very bold black stripe, and then a white stripe, and then a very, very thin shadow stripe that you can see. So I've never really seen that fade before. That is quite interesting. And if we zoom in closely to his rump again, we might be able to see these little scratches and nicks of his skin. And that would mostly have been from another zebra when they fight against one another. And so that's the other zebra trying to bite the rump and the back, and probably trying to get to the tail of that stallion to try and bite it off. These stallions have got very specialized fighting teeth that they use specifically for fighting. Oh, he's coming out. Oh, that's beautiful. He's also got quite interesting patterning on the mane that he has. And those stripes go up quite nicely, but then every now and again, in and amongst the white stripes, there's a couple of black spots. Oh, but he's giving us such nice visuals. And you look at those eyelashes. So striped horse, that kick of theirs is incredibly powerful. And if you just look at the way that it's built, I mean, the stallion can weigh 250, 300 kilograms. And most of that weight is centered towards the back. And so they've got incredibly powerful hindquarters that they'll use. And I mean, they're quite capable of if it strikes a lion properly, they're quite capable of killing a lion in one kick. So, yeah, it's powerful. I mean, for a stallion, he'll use a combination of biting, like I mentioned, and the kicking to fight against another stallion. But when it comes to defense, he'll be trying to use those back legs to defend himself. It's also really cool to see the color around his muzzle. So it's a slightly reddish brown color that he has. And absolutely no hair on the nose. No ways. He's just bitten a leaf off of an apple leaf and is eating it. Is he going to carry on doing that? He is. That's insane. A browsing zebra. Yo. I mean, 99% of the time they're feeding on grass. So to see him putting his head in that apple leaf and plucking the leaf is quite amazing. He's literally eating the leaves of the apple leaf. Yo. I mean, there's even a couple of scars around his eye. The patterning around his ears, though, is also beautiful, because it's not just stripes. There seems to be some zigzagging patterns. I can see a loop on that left ear. Alamoa, these stripes are very beautiful. I can see what you mean by them looking like they've been painted on. And it's amazing that every single zebra's got a unique, different stripe pattern. And I'd love to get a closer look at his mate, but I mean, this one stands out quite a lot because of those very broad, thick stripes. And that, specifically that shadow stripe that forms into a much darker, thicker stripe is really cool. And you see up just above his front shoulder, there's this almost a triangle little pattern there that's surrounded by white. It's just like a little dot. So Krishna, donkeys, horses, zebras, asses, they're all related. They're all in the same family and they all share the same genus. So they are very, very closely related, actually. I mean, within Africa, there's about 4 or 5 different species. In South Africa, we get 3 different species, I think, or 2 different species. And this zebra, not the giraffe, he's putting on such a beautiful show for us. I think Owen and I might watch him for a little bit longer, but we have heard that there are lions close by, so we'll eventually head in that direction.
So we've literally driven every single bit of road in this area where we left the cheetahs this morning, and we've come back to the spot where we actually found them, and we found the herd of buffalo that chased them out this morning from their resting spot. So they are slowly feeding towards the road that we are standing on, and we are hoping that they're going to cross right here in front of us, slowly but surely heading towards the thickets and the bushes to the left hand side that they are feeding towards. Probably for a spot to go and rest for the day. You can see there's some nice, beautiful golden light on them at the moment. There's actually a few fork-tailed drongos. There's one coming in now and sitting in the trees close to them and hawking down and catching some of the insects that they are flushing as they are feeding through the grassland here. Such a quiet and peaceful scene. This herd of buffalo slowly moving through the grassland here. Funny enough, we actually ended off with the sun setting yesterday with the herd of buffalo as well, but in a different section of Phinda. Quite fitting that one have one again this afternoon. Looks like it's a way bigger herd than what we saw yesterday, with just a couple of individuals. And there's actually quite a few big bulls in this herd. And I'm hoping as they feed closer to the road, then we'll roll our vehicle a little bit forward and see if we can get nice and close to them. There's 1 or 2 that's actually walking there in the back that almost has no more hair on their backs there. See if we can get a view of them. it's probably quite difficult for Craig, I think, to like try and find them in between all of them. You can just see them right in the back there with very little hair on their backs, and that's from over the years going and rubbing against rubbing posts and scratching themselves and basically waxing the hair off of their bodies over and over till to the point where it doesn't even grow back anymore. It's interesting that they all kind of spread out from left to right and slowly moving in like a line. Stipo, you're asking if buffaloes sleep during the day or the night. So buffaloes actually are some of the animals that sleep during the evenings quite a bit, but during the day as well, especially hot days and so, and during the middle of the day they'll find thicker areas where it's a little bit cooler or so, and they'll lie down and chew the cud, and often some of them doze off, and they'll try and sleep for sections during the evening as well, getting up and feeding, maybe moving a bit throughout the night. So both during the day and the night. But during the day, it's usually when it's the hottest part of the day, they try and move around as little as possible and not exert too much energy. See, there's the two that's walking in the front there now, that's kind of leading the herd. One of those are two bulls. The bulls are kind of spread out around this herd on the edges, with all the females and the youngsters in the middle. To our right hand side, almost perpendicular with where we are now, there's actually a couple, looks like 3 or 4 bulls actually standing right in on our right hand side here, and then the rest of the herd spread out to the left hand side with a couple of bulls in the front, almost like a protective enclosure for these females and the youngsters. You can see quite a few bushes and stuff moving around as they go into the thickets there, and the bushes are shaking quite a bit, and that's actually them scratching along their horns and around their ears, and so you can imagine that those crevices is where some ticks would love to go and sit and feed on them, and they'll try and scratch on that by using some bushes or so. Now, Bradley, you're asking how many herds of buffalo we have on Phinda. It's quite difficult to say because the herds actually kind of break away from each other and come together, break away and come together. This afternoon, for example, we already saw 3 herds, but even this herd that we're looking at now, I think is more than one herd that's kind of come together. Just because the grazing on Phinda is fairly good all over the place, and we've got water scattered all over in this part of South Africa, so the buffalo don't really congregate in one big herd, but multiple that are spread out all over the place. But we probably have around about 400 or 500 buffalo in the area that we know of. Oh, there's one running there in the background with his tail up. Bit of excitement. They're probably getting chased by an older one or so. Especially around some nice juicy grassy patches, they might chase each other off, or even when they get close to each other's young. You can just feel the breeze is cooling down quite a bit, and I wonder if that's why they are maybe moving towards these thickets here in front of us, to see if they can get out of the wind and find a spot to settle down for the evening. Quite a few big bulls with nice big sets of horns as well. Ian, you're asking if buffalo would be friends with normal cows. I don't see why they wouldn't be friends. They are from the same family. However, I think, in Africa, people try and avoid mixing buffalo or having buffalo and cows in similar areas, because they are so closely related. You can imagine diseases are prone to jump between the species. So, for example, in Botswana, they've got a massive corridor to keep buffalo away from their cattle breeding areas to stop foot and mouth disease. But for now, I think we are going to keep on going, and Craig and I are going to see if we can find the cheetah before the sun sets completely.
The zebra is putting on such a show for us. He's come and he's walked within 2.5 meters of our vehicle, and it's like we're not even here. Little exhale there. I'm sure he must have gotten some sort of grass in his nose, maybe even some flies. You can see how his whole body's twitching from time to time for that exact reason. And it's interesting, we were watching the left side of him, and now we get to see the right side of him too. And that stripe pattern is almost exactly the same, where it starts off as a shadow stripe and then it gets bolder and darker as it forms into a normal stripe. And especially from this angle around that rump area, you might be able to see those little nicks and old scratches from when he was fighting, looking for a female. And for us to have a look at him and figure out that it's just him with another stallion, and those fights are probably unsuccessful for now. And so he's probably still quite a young zebra who's coming into his prime. And so he'll need to continue practicing and getting better at fighting until eventually one day he'll be able to put up a big enough challenge where he'll win over his first filly. And then from that point, he'll keep going and he'll try and get as many as he can. And stallions like these zebra will probably get about 5 or 6 fillies. Is probably quite a decent amount for his harem. As he grazes closer and closer, as soon as he decides to move away from us, we're going to move away from him and see if we can try and find those lions.
We found a bird that's on top of the pecking order. Okay, let's move on from that. Never mention that again. This is a woodpecker, and it looks like a bearded woodpecker, and it is busy chipping away at this loose bark on this marula tree. And a moment ago, actually, we saw something really cool. First time I've ever seen it. It actually managed to stick its tongue into a small hole in the tree and pull out a small grub, which I thought was incredible. I've never seen that before. I know they do it. They've got an incredible barbed tongue that they can shoot into these little holes and pull out grubs. So what it's doing right now is it's just trying to chip away at the bark to expose any wood borer holes. And then when they tap the hole, they'll be able to they'll be able to feel the hollow pecking, whether there's something inside or not, and they can focus on that. Oh, it's found a good piece. Look at that, it's getting some leverage in there, some torque. It's amazing that they don't get a headache. They've got a special adaptation, woodpeckers, where their tongue actually, it's a very long tongue, can actually curl around the back of its brain and help serve as a cushion so that it's not constantly hammering against the back of its skull, which is quite clever. Oh, here it comes. There you can see it's a bearded woodpecker because it's got a very broad, dark stripe that runs down the side of its chin, or what would be a chin if it had the same head as us, just on the sides of its beak. And of course, if you look at the tail there, it's a very stiff, bristled tail to help it gain some leverage when it's hammering its head into the wood like that. If it had a soft tail like most other birds, it wouldn't be able to brace itself properly. It's also got a very, very interesting adaptation on its feet. It's got zygodactylus foot structure, which is a very fancy word. Let's move past that as well. It basically just means that it's got 2 toes forward and 2 toes back. It gives it amazing grip. Look at this. Oh, it's going to get a nice piece of bark off there. Watch this. Get rid of that bark. What's underneath there? Anything interesting? Goodness, tailor-made. That's a great question. How strong are their beaks? I've never really held a woodpecker in my hand to feel what the beak feels like, but I suppose it's probably incredibly hard. That material is, I want to say it's a bone. I mean, it's bone, a very broad-based bone that spreads the weight or the power of the beak slamming against the tree, and it's covered in a keratin kind of sheath. So, and there it flies off to the next tree. But it's a very tough beak, not a thin beak that would crack or break easily, and also not a short, broad beak like the seed crackers. It's got a long beak with broad base, so it spreads when it's hammering at that tree. So it's quite a tougher beaks of those kind of birds. Yeah, it was a lovely tree and a lovely moment that we spent with our woodpeckers up close, like we can with this amazing camera. So that was really great. But we're on Marula Lane right now, and we're actually heading in the area where we saw the lions. It's starting to cool down now. The sun is starting to set, and I suspect that if they're still in the area, they'll start to get on the move, which would be pretty cool to see. This morning we lost them fairly quickly as they moved through some really, really dense areas. Later in the morning we found them again. They were already starting to settle down and rest. But now as it cools down, I'm sure we're going to start seeing them get active again, which would be super.
Hyena Den was not active once again. As twice this afternoon. Oh, hello, Impala. We are going to say hello to you once I get off this bumpy hill. 2 males. Oh no, don't run away. Not much for a bachelor herd here, really. It's got grass hanging in its mouth. Let's keep bumbling, BK. So yes, I think Corky's coming to feed her little one during the night, and Ribbon's little ones are not so little anymore. They're getting older that she doesn't need to attend the den every single day. There's no real other explanation why we're not seeing them. Their timeshare has obviously changed, but I'm not giving up. I'm going to keep looking for some spotted creatures.
We have got a patch creature. This time it has got both of its eyes in good order as far as we can tell, and it is in full charge. Now the interesting thing about this particular giraffe is that it also is a dark giraffe, and it is also on its own. And there was some research done relatively recently on the colours of giraffes, because the old story that is probably being recited as I speak to you around the Sabi Sands and various other wildlife areas is that giraffes get darker as they get older, so it's a good way to age them. That is not in fact true. But what does seem to be true is that those giraffes that have darker skin tend to be more favourably looked upon by the ladies, and they're also more likely to be on their own. Now, they don't know the exact mechanisms for this. They think it might be testosterone, but they're risk takers, so they'll move from group
know what happened to Mr. Hendry there, but he found my one-eyed giraffe. I hope you all got a closer look at it. I've obviously not seen it, but James managed to find him. So you can all send in your theories as to what you think may have happened to this giraffe. Or send in your screenshots, actually. I'd love to see them. I mean, I'm not a doctor, but I think once we get a closer look, we can maybe try to determine what's happened. But he's quite shy with that eye. I'm still trying to look for this baby steenbok for you all. It's somewhere on quarantine. Okay, I'm not sure where I'm going to head now. I'm going to go where the wind takes me.
Well, then you'll be going southeast if you're going to go where the wind takes you, Lauren. I'm not sure what happened to us last time, or how far I got in my discussion, but here is a dark giraffe. He's a magnificent creature. He's also got no fly swatter on the end of his tail. It's been eaten off, probably by ticks. So apparently I left off at the point where I was talking about females being attracted to males with dark skin. I then went into a very long treatise, obviously to no one in particular, about, well, to Theo only, about the fact that they think the mechanism, or they're not sure of the mechanism that creates the darkness and the different sort of attitudes, but they are putting it down, they think, to testosterone. They think higher levels of testosterone. I think he's going to go behind us again there, Theo, so I'm going to get behind the slot. There we go. Hello. You are a very fine-looking fellow. Apart from your tail, which I'm afraid is sadly lacking. Was it you who inflicted that horrific wound on our other friend, Right, there it is. Well, no, we might get one last view. Let me carry on back. Liz, I know that I've been asked this question before. I know I've looked it up, and I don't think I remember the answer exactly. But yes, in essence, they do have a higher blood pressure than some other animals because they've got to get the blood all the way up to the brain. I think that that's what the answer was. Makes the most logical sense. But there's been quite a lot of research done on giraffe blood pressure that I'm going to have to redo myself, I'm afraid. There are also a huge number of, I think, much more complicated valves in the veins and arteries of a giraffe that keep the blood where it needs to be. So it stops it draining out of the head and into the toes. Nice light on him now. Why he's insisting on walking this way. He seems to want to cross the road. Do you want to cross the road? No? You don't. Okay. Carry on going backwards. He's deeply confused by us. I'll tell you what, let me make this easy for him and for Theo. There we go, Theo. Now, if he wants to cross the road behind us, he can. Lovely call there of the magpie shrike. And one or two babblers. Those are the only calls we can hear. And I think as he disappears behind that enormous guarri bush, it's time to move along. We're going back towards that waterhole in the hopes that something will have turned up to have a drink on this warm afternoon. Perhaps some elephants, perhaps Tlalamba the leopard. Ooh. Polar bear, I think a giraffe's heart is pretty much like any other mammal's heart. I think it's got 4 chambers. I don't know for sure. I will look up the physiology of the giraffe heart and its blood pressure. I suspect quite strongly that one of our kind viewers will post me an article and I shall read it as well. But I think the design of it is pretty similar, yeah. It is quite big though. Proportionately large. Nice questions. Poor answers. Sorry about that. So we're going to go up to the waterhole and then we'll head towards the west. I'm going to give up in the east here unless there's something absolutely spectacular there. It doesn't have to be that spectacular. I'll take it averagely spectacular. Greatly looking forward to the outbreak of leaf growth, flowers, etc. that's going to come with the next season. But I'm afraid, I suppose that's a few months away still.
That is true, James. It's not going to be long. I think spring starts next month and you will start to see the whole landscape change. I'm very much looking forward to summer. However, because it's still quite thick now and it's still quite lush, that means that when summer comes it's going to be even thicker. The thicket that you can see will be really impenetrable and it will be harder to find animals, but at least the plethora of insects around will be incredible. I'll start my butterfly list over once again. So since I can't find any animals, I am looking forward to answering your questions. I'm not having a very lucky day today, I'm afraid. It's very, very quiet. The sun's slowly starting to go down. I think we'll get a nice sunset as we get onto the northern cut line. Okay, the scythe didn't deliver much for me, but hopefully the northern cut line will.
So we've just managed to find this pride of lions that the trackers found earlier on this morning, and they haven't moved very far at all. But the really nice thing is that there's a few of them that are starting to get a bit more active. So there's one that's grooming. You can see its head up and it's licking its front paws. But then every now and again you see the swish of the tail of another one, and it's been happening a lot. So I think there must be quite a lot of flies around here that's getting these lions to roll around and move a little bit more. And it's just so beautiful. I mean, we're in these long, or in the hours now where there's this super long shade. The sun is directly behind us. And so it won't be too long, I hope, until these lions start to move around. And they're all looking, they're not looking completely full, but they're not looking hungry or skinny either. There's one of the cubs that's just standing up now. Big stretch. A few of them have been doing exactly what that one is doing, and just taking this time to go to the toilet. Looks like there's something moving in the ground there it was watching. Oh, it's beautiful with that backlight there. So this is the most movement we've seen so far. They've come from that little group to the second little group over here. And this is the group that she's moved into, where all of the adult females are. So there's the adult females, and the one with the head up is the one who has got the very small cubs who she hasn't brought here. So she's kept them away from the pride for now. So she might end up heading back towards them. We haven't seen them in the last couple of days. I'm sure she'll want to go and make sure that they're okay. And just see how busy those tails are. So that one that's flicking the tail, that's right close to the one with the head up, is the young male. So genus, absolutely yes. It's actually not uncommon for there to be more than 2 males that are in control of a pride. And it just boils down to, if there's more than 1 male, it's easier to protect the territory and easier to take over a pride of lions. And so ideally, I mean, they would want more than 1, and they would probably like it if there was more than 2. So sometimes you see a coalition of males, what we call them, and sometimes they're about 5 or 6 strong. And this pride, however, has got 2 dominant males who are brothers, and they dominate, and they've got their territory around this pride, and then they've actually got another pride in the western part of the reserve that we sometimes see them with. And so it's actually quite common to see them with 2, sometimes 3 males, 4 males, and then in extreme cases sometimes 5 or 6. So the litter of cubs that we have within this pride, of the 8 sub-adults that are in that one big clump, there are 3 males, which means that those 3 are more than likely going to stick together and form a coalition. This female's coming over to let us smell her. And we've got 2 adults up as we speak. It might just be this, just going to the loo. They might settle straight back down, but now we've got 3. I think they're going to get moving very shortly. It looks like they're in the mood. They're a lot more responsive than usual. The adults are hearing the grass rustling, and they're picking up their head to just watch what's going on. And if it's one of the older dominant lionesses that decides to move, I'm sure there'll be a reaction by a few of the others. So this one coming over is one of those older lionesses. looking for a cuddle. So Beverly, you know, it might be quite stressful, but in a way, those cubs being left by themselves are actually safer than being in a big pride like this. The reason being, they are very small at this stage, and they will listen to the mother. They find a spot and they do not move, and so they don't really draw attention to themselves, which allows her to go and spend extended hours out hunting and following the pride. And if they with the pride like this, they get lots of pressure on by the sub-adults at the moment, who are very curious. They're wanting to play with those young cubs a lot, and sometimes that playfulness can end in harming the youngsters. And so that's one way that they could get injured. And then another bigger way is when these lions eventually successfully make a kill. You know, it's just like one massive cat fight. These animals are growling and snarling and hitting one another. And if those two little cubs get caught in the crosshairs or the crossfire, they are very likely going to get injured. And so what she's doing at the moment is she's slowly but surely introducing them to the pride. So she comes, brings them in for a couple of days. The lions get used to them. They get used to older, bigger lions. And then when they move away and the pride covers a lot of distance, she'll go and find a nice safe spot for them. You know, if they try and follow the pride all the time and they fall behind, you've got the scavengers that will often follow a pride of lions, like hyenas, maybe even jackal to a certain extent. And as soon as they're isolated, they are going to be very, very vulnerable. So in many ways, it's probably safer at this age for her to leave them alone.
Wild Earth relies on support from viewers like you to carry on broadcasting our daily live shows. A small donation goes a long way in helping us on our mission to connect the world with nature. Please visit our support page to see how you can help and become part of the Wild Earth family.
We've come back to these two rhinos that were sleeping earlier, and they actually got up and started feeding a little bit, but they are still very sleepy, not moving too much, and we were hoping that they were going to move over to the left-hand side here, because we've got the most spectacular sunset at the moment just next to the mountains, just with a few clouds actually just in front of the sun. What a way for Marcel to end his stint here at Pinda. And you can see there's just the edge of the last few Lubombo mountains, the last few of the mountain range that stretches all the way from the Kruger National Park and the Sabi Sands to here on the east coast of South Africa. Look at those one or two clouds that's in front of the sun there. Craig even said that it's just going to get better and better, and it sure has just become better and better, and these clouds just make it so much more pretty. Wow, like a scene out of The Lion King. And it's absolutely dead quiet here, just a few birds calling in the distance, giving their last few songs before the night falls. And look how quickly that sun is going down. Earlier it wasn't even touching the mountains yet. It's on its way to being almost halfway gone. Maya, it is sure one of the most beautiful sunsets I've seen since Wild Earth has been with us on Pinda, and hopefully you are taking some screenshots and to remember this. I wish you could all be here with us. It is spectacular, beautiful colorations. And the way it's setting at the moment is to the east, to the west, and that's towards towards Johannesburg and the cities, so there's a bit of like haze in the distance, which makes it so beautiful. There we go. Just the last little slither of sun is gone behind the mountains. But even now it's super, super beautiful. Wow. While having two white rhinos feeding just a couple of meters away. Doesn't get much better than that. Can even hear the crickets. Can hear a few crickets in the background there. Atlanta, I agree with you. Definitely an award-winning sunset. Wow. I see this rhino is actually listening to us. After the little bit of quiet there. I just saw a Birchall's cuckoo actually catch like an insect or something there in the background as well. I think these rhinos are going to start to move a bit, find a different spot to settle down for the evening. They were actually resting for the whole afternoon in the spot. It's slowly starting to move a bit, maybe go and have a drink of water before it's completely dark. I don't know if you can hear that, but you can just hear the faint sound of the grass as the rhino is pulling some grass out there with his mouth. It is very soft though. The way that they are feeding, going to the right hand side there, you can see that one on the right is kind of leading the other one. The fact that they're facing both in that direction, there is that watering hole that we were talking about earlier on the other side there. Do you think they're going to be heading there soon? But we are going to have to leave these rhinos soon, as it's getting a little bit darker and we don't want to affect their behavior at all and view them when it's dark, as they will probably try and settle down for a bit. But for now I think we'll keep on driving and look for some nocturnal animals.
The wind blew me here into a very small herd of elephants. Got a young female here who's just gracefully going from tree to tree with her small little tusks trying to get some delicious food. And I just wanted to wrap on the three-legged conversation because it's fascinating. This paper is very detailed. And just to summarize, so many species in the animal kingdom use tails or feathers or any sort of appendage to balance. So you would think the tripod stance would be more prevalent in the animal kingdom. Even a kangaroo They actually use their tail so much in order to sort of stand in that position that they do. So why don't you find animals with 3 legs if it seems to assist a lot of animals in balance and energy saving? And basically, the paper summarized that all species, all animals are bilateral. And the sort of code, if you like, for having 2 sides, bilateral means 2 sides. If you draw a line from your forehead all the way down to the bottom of your body, and that's embedded within most species' DNA, that they are bilateral from the very early stages of the evolution of life. And that's perhaps even when legs and flippers and even fins evolved. We are baked in bilateral symmetry. And that's very, very difficult to change. So although having a 3rd appendage or a 3rd limb would assist many species out here, it's ingrained in us to be bilateral. And although you get insects, for example, that have 6 legs, so essentially it is 3 on either side, and they move on 3 and in the other 3 and in the other 3. It's actually called an alternating tripod gait. That's not 3 legs. That's a little bit different from what this paper was talking about. So we're basically built in to be two-handed, 2-legged. And therefore, is that what's preventing a 3-legged animal from existing from the very early stages of life in our DNA, in every species' DNA, to be bilateral? Trilateral life has, well, never evolved. Or maybe it has evolved on another planet. We just don't know it yet. I think we can reposition. I thought there would be more elephants joining these youngsters. But unfortunately, down this dip, for some reason, we don't get signal. Yeah, they're all on the other side. Okay, I'm going to try and reposition and get better views of these 4-legged animals.
What we've got here is a rather special look at the sunset. Now, I said it was going to be spectacular. Let me stop speaking for a little while because it is about to touch the mountains and disappear there below. Shh. So the only sound that whole time was a green wood hoopoo going tick-tick, tick-tick, tick-tick. Now some Franklins are starting up, but that's about it. Now, many of you, if we zoom all the way out, you'll be able to see that this big plume of smoke is still heading in a southeasterly direction with the northwest wind. And although it's sort of directly towards us, what happens with these fires is that, I don't know if anyone's actually fighting it or if they're just going to let it burn itself out. What will happen is that it'll get cold this evening, and the wind will probably die down, and that fire will not manage to carry on. It might leave some embers, and look, if it's very hot tomorrow and the wind blows, then it might come up again if no one's done anything about it. But it's not going to survive the night, the fire, if it gets cold and the wind drops. Because the fires out here need three things. One is oxygen, and that comes from the wind. The second is that they need, sorry about that, birds, dry fuel. And the third is that they need, if they need four things. They need dry fuel, obviously. Then they need a low ambient humidity, which it will have. And then it needs a high temperature, high ambient temperature. And it's going to have two of those things sadly lacking. It's going to be cold, and there's not going to be any wind tonight, I don't think. So, like I was saying, although it looks pretty terrifying, it's nothing like those fires that you get in the outback of Australia, where those gum trees are basically exploding because of all of the oils and things in them, and when the pine trees and those sorts of things start to burn.
We've got up. I don't know if it's the same herd or not, but we've caught up with some elephants. Oh, hello. We've got some suckling going on here. It's not the best angle, I'm sorry, BK. Excuse the aerial. I thought they were going to go in front of the car, but they've actually gone behind the car. Must be a mama and her calf. They use their trunk to sniff out the nipple, and then they use their mouth to actually suckle. It's quite a big youngster. They can remain in milk up to 4 years old. But the sort of most important part for elephants is the first 2 years. That's when they will really drink milk. It's only after the 2 years that they'll start to feed on other sort of vegetation. And will remain in milk up to 4 years. I just want to turn really carefully here. Okay, this might be the last little view that we can give of this Ellie herd as they move off into the thicket.
So if anyone was ever wondering what the bravest animal out here might be, I think we've got it. Look at these black-backed jackal. Look at this one coming closer. And that's a lion. I can't believe how close it's getting. Must be sniffing the dung that these lions have been dropping. It's even taking a step forward. And the amazing thing is that these lions are not paying any attention to it whatsoever. None of the cubs are looking at it, none of the adults. But how's that for trusting your ability to escape these lions? It must be less than 5 meters away. And you might even see the partners in the background. And now it's trotting off. So this jackal is now moving in amongst where the sub-adults were lying when we first saw them. So you might just see a quick little color change as we try and show you these views as best we can. And infrared is sometimes the best way to do it. And just look at that. One of the sub-adults up, 2 of the jackals watching. So the only movement that we've had is the sub-adults moving from exactly where that jackal was to moving in front of the females. And I'll hope for them getting up and active. It isn't quite over yet. There's 2 that are grooming really nicely with one another, so it looks like it could even be the mother and youngster cleaning each other. With Papadum, the lions, I don't think would fight with the jackals, mostly because they probably think that it's not really worth their energy. And I think that's why these jackals are brave enough to come up towards these lions. And the only time that you might find the lions actively chasing these jackals away is if there's a carcass around and they feel very protected against it. So they'll probably feel threatened by most other animals. See, so now the cleaning's done, and one of the lionesses is up. This is the female with the young cubs, so she could be returning back to the cubs. No. Got a little bit too excited too quickly there. So these jackals, they might have just caught whiff of these lions and come to investigate to see what was going on. And I mean, I'm sure they're experts at reading the body language of these lions, knowing that they're not really in the mood to be hunting or moving around, and so they are happy to try and get as close to them as possible. But it does look like they came and did a big quick loop around these lions, realized there's no food or nothing of interest, and now they decided to get up and move away. And Nancy, it definitely is a lazy lion Sunday. But I mean, they're not the laziest lions I've ever seen. And they are slowly but surely getting active. And this is equivalent to a nice Sunday morning lion to humans, I guess. They got no real agenda, happy to just snooze, go back to bed, sleep a little bit more. I think the only thing that's really gotten them up and moving are these biting insects that they've been experiencing. So that leads to the flick of the tail, and then sometimes they get so agitated they actually stand up and try and move away from where these insects are. But this is what I was talking about. Look how responsive these lions are. And that was one lioness that got up, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all of their heads are all of a sudden up. So that's why I think it's promising that they might move very, very shortly. If they were happy to continue snoozing, it would be like that one on the right hand side who's basically getting urinated on and it isn't budging. But the rest of them are all very attentive. They heard and saw that it might have been one of the bigger adult females, and so it's worth following. And so now we've got our third female that's up and moving. Look, and she's the one with the limp. It's still, I mean, it's not improving, but it doesn't look like it's getting any worse. So she was one of the lions that were actually separated from the pride for around about 4 or 5 days. So she managed to find her way back. I'm sure she'll be very keen to just stick with the pride and move with them. And just look at her face, you can see it, that's old. That big scar on her cheek looks like it's a new scar. And that could have been from the recent kill that they made. More and more of them lying and yawning. So they will get up, move to the front end of the group, try get in with some grooming. Here we go. I think this is pretty good news if that one decides not to lie down. Jinxed it. And this little one is gazing into the distance. She's the only one that's looking that way, so I wonder what she's listening to. And she's now looking at her older cousin, who's also starting to show a bit more sign of life. And I wonder how, if they've got an extra strong bond now after being away for so long and finding their way back together eventually to the pride. They must have. Nice big healthy teeth that young male has. And so if he's yawning like that, he'll get up and then we get to look at his leg. And that limp hasn't improved, but I mean, it looks like he's walking around almost perfectly fine again. So a guide monkey, it's something that I don't think we can put an exact number to. I mean, with lions it's incredibly rare. They're within, there's 3 of them in the whole entire world, and for a period of 10 or 15 years there was no white lions. And so it's quite difficult. I think, when you get the leucism, these leucistic morphs of animals being either very, very light, like this white lion, or very, very dark, it tends to be a little bit more common in birds. And raptors come to mind when I think about birds being leucistic or melanistic. And the Wahlberg's eagle's a good example, where you'll have a white morph and then you'll have a very, very dark morph. And those you see a lot more regularly than you will in mammals. So by the looks of it, they are still putting on that snooze button, but I hope we get to see them up and properly walking because that's always a magnificent sight to behold.
We have the most gorgeous herd of Inyala. Lots of youngsters drinking at Galagopan. I have to say, it's the first time I've seen anything drinking at Galagopan in a long time. Lovely. Great sexual dimorphism between males and females. They look incredibly different. And because of this is why you call the females ewes. There's a male, a young male. He's not got his full adult coat yet. You see that? But he's got horns. Slowly changing. Hanging around with the females. He's a bull. Now, those disruptive markings that make Inyala so significant, those lines, those bars, believe it or not, females are said to have around 18 stripes and the males 14. Now, I would love this female to stop so we can count. Or maybe some of you can count for me. I didn't manage. Did any of you manage? But the very, very young males will actually resemble the females. So the youngsters will look like females only until their coat starts to change and they start to develop those straight, spiky horns. Oh, that was lovely. Did you get that name, BK? Elton! Whew. Elton, you counted 12. So then my information is not accurate, is it? I wonder if there's smaller lines, because that's the ballpark figures that they give for Inyala. But I didn't manage to count, so well done, Elton. You counted 12. But the males definitely have less. Oh, hello, I'm sorry. Sutu, I didn't expect to see you. Sutu's walking to the pan. Okay, we're going to try and follow her for the time being. Hope you're still with us. Okay, I'm just going to turn the car. All the hyenas are out for the evening. I wonder if she'll go and take a drink. In case you wonder what that awful noise was, yes, I hit a bush. I've just hit another one. Sorry, Beaky, I'm going to have to turn. She's going to drink. No, is she walking right past the pan? Someone must not be thirsty. Alert, but not thirsty. This is the time of night, I think, when it's really started to cool down. Hyenas get active. Smelling, listening. It's so lovely to see her. I haven't seen her in quite some time because the Dane's not been active. Very fluffy. She's still a sub-adult. This is one of June's daughters. Oh, I wonder if she can hear all the Inyala that just went by. She hears something. A little side eye towards us. And one of the reasons we really don't follow hyenas up off-road. We don't off-road for them. We can, but it very rarely is successful. They weave in and out. They walk great distances just weaving because they're not actually on territorial patrol and they're not with a specific mission in mind other than following their nose. So they'll do large inhales through their nostrils as they're walking, and any scent that grabs their attention, they'll follow it. And when I say scent, it's mostly the smell of a carcass or leopards out here. She's behaving the exact way that the individual did last night, who I believe is the same one that was with Kalamba when she was up the Tamboiti in the drainage line with her kill, I think last week. It's the same hyena. And I am sure it's the same hyena I saw trying to steal Tanti's kill, but unfortunately we were not live. So I wonder who this hyena is, but it's not been identified. It's not part of the Juma clan that we know of. And she's behaving in the exact same way he did last night. This is a decision-making process. Oh, we're going to come... Oh. Huh. Well... Clearly the decision was to make no decision. Isn't she beautiful? Got a very dark snout. And she spends far more time at the den than June does. We never see her mother around. Her mother has got a floppy ear now. But Sutu herself is always around the den. She appears to have a great relationship with Ribbon and the cubs. She loves the cubs. She's still a youngster at heart. Still got perfect ears. That may change, of course, once she reaches adulthood. And it'll be interesting to know exactly where she fits into the clan. Not quite sure yet with Sutu. There's actually a lot of unanswered questions when it comes to the Juma clan, believe it or not. Suzanne, you're saying, what a gorgeous animal. I know. Hyenas are stunning. I'm well aware there will be people that disagree with that. But hyenas are just gorgeous. Especially when they're in good condition. When they have both eyes and both ears intact. They're very, very beautiful species. Okay, I think we need to go into IR now. I'm getting hand signals from BK in the back here. It's that time of night. Lost too much light, so your picture is very shortly going to go from color to black and white. Now immediately, if you see Sutu, you'll know that she's a youngster. Adult hyenas really are not this fluffy. Even if you can't tell the sex at this stage, you know immediately that she's a youngster. Oh, okay, something's got her attention. I often feel like when you're trying to ID Sutu, she looks like she's got a Joker smile. The Joker as in the Joker from Batman. The sort of features of her smile extend way further back to her ears. And it's not a smile, that's me anthropomorphizing. But it's the black line. That's always how I identify Sutu. Okay, we're going to continue to watch our sub-adult here and see where she goes.
This is the moment that we've been waiting for. These lions have decided to get up and move. And they seem to all of a sudden, from lying down, grooming, they're all up and moving with quite a purpose. Look how many lions there are walking down this road. Has to be one of the greatest sights ever, to just follow lions and see them walking towards us. The way that they're going, fortunately for us, is actually right out into the open. And we might be able to loop around and get them to walk past us again. It was quite incredible. It just took one female to decide, okay, now it's time. She decided to get up and move, and one by one, it was almost like they were waiting in line, and they all got up and followed each other. And they're coming out into a really nice open clearing, and they're getting led by that female who's got the young cubs, and she seems to be walking with quite a purpose. So she has just lain down, commentator's curse again. But this is just so beautiful. We've got the last of the sun. We've got this pride moving through this open grass. It seems like they have moved into the spot, and a few of them are lying down. But some of them are still moving. And it's amazing. I mean, they're just looking and feeding off of each other's energy and watching their behaviors. Because not once have we heard any vocalizing. We haven't heard any low grunts, anything. They're all just watching one another. I'd love for them to get up and move one last time for the end of show. We can't be too unhappy with what we just saw there. Them walking straight down that pathway towards us. And they might have just come out into these open areas to listen and look, just to see if they can see anything that might be coming to settle down. Things like wildebeest impala. And from this point, if they keep going, they're heading straight towards a waterhole eventually at some point. And hopefully somewhere in between there, they get to catch up to some sort of animal that they get to hunt and feed. But I will leave these lions shortly with Yapi taking over tomorrow, and if anyone can find lions, it will be Yapi, and I'm sure that will be his plan tomorrow. And so it's been yet another beautiful day here at and beyond Ngala, watching elephants and baboons down in the riverbed, and ending off with these beautiful lions. So as we say goodbye to the lions, we're going to say goodnight to everyone, and we'll see you in the morning where Yapi is going to take over and show you something epic.